today we textured our walls. We started to tape all of our windows and stuff that we can't paint over. We put plastic in all of our outlets. So we finished texturing after it dried a little bit. Then we started our paint preparation. Mistakes would be maybe a little bit of bald spots when you texture, but all you have to do is just go back, maybe shine a light, see where your texture is. And if there's a big bald spot in an opening, just go and put some more texture back over it. Nothing too big. What I would have done is when you start, after you're done mudding, as soon as the mud's semi-dry, I would go ahead and I'd caulk around the windows just to give it more time to dry, so you can go ahead and tape them, because you can't put tape over a wet caulk. Today we're going to need our 6-inch mud knife, a hawk and trowel, and after we're done mudding and it dries a little bit, then we're going to start taping and preparing for paint. And all we're going to need is our painter's plastic, painter's tape, and a knife to cut our plastic. So right now we're just doing our finishing touches, sanding, and we're going to get ready to texture today. Shouldn't take too long, but that'll be the end of our mudding. So after that dries, we'll hit it with a light sand and we'll be able to spray over it. So I just took a wet sponge and I cleaned off all the dry mud and dust that accumulated on this from the last build. I just did that because you want a clean surface to put your mud on, so you don't get any streaks when you go and apply your texture. Right now we're about halfway done texturing our bedroom half of the unit. I'm in the closet right now, and one important thing that you can't forget, especially with this unit, because there's so many more edges and corners, is when you put your texture, you need to make sure that you get up in those corners, because if you just start here and here, you'll have a plain visible corner and it's going to look bad when you go to paint. So it's important to get up in those corners. Also, if you put texture on and it's pretty thick, kind of like over here, if you wait a few minutes, then you can take your trowel and just knock it back down so it's smooth again. And that worked really well, just so you won't have to sand as much. It's actually going fairly quick, I think. Hopefully that's enough. So what I've been doing, I've been putting my texture on real rough like this, all the way across, and then you can come back after you put it on, and then if you go super light with your trowel over it in an opposite direction, then it makes it knocks some depth off of your texture, so it'll dry quicker, and it also smooths out all those ridges, so you won't need to sand as much after it's dried. Yeah, so this wall is pretty difficult just because we only have like 2.5, 3 foot opening to work with. So it's really easy to hit your hawk on your texture that you already done and mess it up. So the first thing I would do is I would start with this wall, because you know if you're working this way, you're not going to bump into this wall as much, versus if you're working here, you have 2 walls you can bump into. So I'd start with that wall first, and it's pretty hard because all the cuts we have and our vent and stuff. So what I'm doing is I put my texture on pretty thick, and I let it dry for about 5 minutes. And once it's semi-dry, then I can go ahead and knock it down, and it'll hold that shape without the mud being so impressionable that everything I do with my tool, it'll leave a mark. And that seems to work pretty good. I have about this much done. I still have to do the bottom half, but The texture looks the same going all around, so that's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. So right now I'm just cleaning my trowel. You want to clean it frequently, maybe every other time that you go and you put mud on your hawk, because these rust very easily, and if you let it sit with the wet mud on it for a long time, you'll get some rust streaks in your texture. I mean, it's nothing too big. You can paint over it, but you still want to take care of the tools that you have. Yeah, so we just finished our texture. Now what we're going to do, well, we can't do anything else till it dries, so we're going to get a bunch of fans, put them in here, move the air around, and then once our texture is dry, the next step is going to be sanding down all the sharp points and ridges and moving on to caulking. And for our caulking, we're just going to go caulk every corner that our mud didn't reach in. If it rains, there's going to be a lot of humidity in there and it's not going to dry as quick. But for sure tomorrow it'll be dry. We'll sand it, and hopefully we won't need any touch-ups. So, yep, tomorrow we'll caulk and paint. And then once the paint's dry, we'll start working on our flooring. Right now our texture's pretty much dry, so we're just working ahead of our dry time. And we're taping all of our doorways and stuff that tape can't go on. But we're also going to have to tape our sliding door. And with outlets, I just took plastic and wrap it back there. It's not going to hurt the wire if it gets paint. You're just going to have to strip the paint off to see what's your neutral and your hot and ground. So that's a pain, so go ahead and tape over those. Pretty much the same thing, just anything you don't want paint on, go ahead and throw paint on. Anything that's questionable, go ahead and throw tape on that also.
You guys gonna get to priming today?
Yeah, that's our goal. So one thing that you do need to do before you paint is you have to caulk all of your corners just to make that nice seamless edge that everyone's used to.
So for texturing, we're looking for not a pattern. You don't want a pattern in texturing because you don't want it all to be the same, but you're looking to make sure there's no heavy lines, just making sure that everything gets coverage, and you want a light hawk and trowel. So their texturing's looking good. They're gonna have to hit it with some sanding. They got some places that are a little thicker than others, but overall they've covered it nicely. They've gotten in the corners. They've gotten on the sides of the windows. You want to texture this as well. So they've done that. And they've done a really good job texturing. So they'll just have a little bit of light sanding to do tomorrow. But it was wet today, and it still's been, they've had some fans on it. So it's been drying, but you can still see a little bit is wet. But tomorrow they'll be able to sand it and then get it prepped. They've also done some taping over here. Taping off the doorways, taping off the wood so that it doesn't get painted. So when they come in and hit it with the interior primer, that it'll all adhere nicely and not damage any of the other items. So looks like they're doing a great job. They got tape off that window. And they're also going to do some waterproofing of the shower tomorrow. So, but overall, they did a great job today.